One specific one brings me back to a time in my life. I was in my early 20s, went to work with a close friend of mine, and he was far more successful than I was. And so I just continued to try and chase this idea of being successful like him. And that included buying a really expensive watch. That included buying a Mercedes, even though those things were kind of outside of my income level at that time. And so I continued down that path. I was spending money to look like I was successful, even though I didn't have it. I was dressing to look more successful than I was.
Welcome to Authentic Conversations. I'm your host, Ryan James Miller, and I believe the way to freedom, fulfillment, and success ultimately comes by living as the most authentic version of yourself. If you're ready to live the life you've dreamed of, you're in the right place.
All right, what up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today, I'm solo. And every single time that I get the opportunity to go solo, I am trying to just kind of glean, reflect back on conversations I've had, things that have been hot topics. There are a lot of things that are running through my mind that I would love to talk about right now. But I want to keep this kind of short and to the point, and I want this specific episode to be very practical, just to give you some practical things to think about, as well as practical things for you to potentially do in order to move forward in you pursuing this calling that you have on your life to be the man that God has called you to be. If there are ladies out there listening, I don't know, maybe this is a list that you can share with your husband that will help him to become the man that you want him to be, that you know he can be, and that ultimately he desires for himself. So, I shared a video across some of my social platforms. It started on TikTok. Funny enough, that platform seems to get some pretty good engagement when I'm talking about this type of content. Anyway, so it started on TikTok, got a couple thousand or just over 1,000 views on it, and from there went to Instagram and a couple of other places. And it was around this idea of why men aren't happy. I actually said 10 reasons why men aren't happy, and then there was a bonus one there at the end. And so I want to share each one of those here, and then I want to give you some things to consider as you try and turn that around if this is something that you are struggling with or that you've been thinking a lot about. All right. So number one, the first thing that, and this isn't an exhaustive list. There are other things that may be included or could be included in this list. These are just 10 things that came to mind for me. Really, there's going to be 11, but the primary 10 first, and then I'll share the last one afterwards. So this first one was, for so many men, they chase the idea of success instead of doing what it takes to be successful. We see, and this is going to be a recurring theme in this discussion, but you guys see what's out there. You see other men that are successful, maybe influencers online, or that are running companies that you look to. And so you want to image their success, or you read a book, or maybe you got a buddy that's really successful. And so you want to image their success. And I get it. I get that we look at that, and so we want to be like that. But that can be really dangerous. There's a lot of reasons why that can be dangerous. But one specific one brings me back to a time in my life. I was in my early 20s, went to work with a close friend of mine, and he was far more successful than I was. And so I just continued to try and chase this idea of being successful like him. And that included buying a really expensive watch. That included buying a Mercedes, even though those things were kind of outside of my income level at that time. And so I continued down that path. I was spending money to look like I was successful, even though I didn't have it. I was dressing to to look more successful than I was. It was just this thought and this idea of being successful, but I wasn't actually doing what it took to be successful. First and foremost, I wasn't smart with my money. But beyond that, I didn't know what type of success I had been created for. I wasn't clear to that. I didn't know the right habits and disciplines. At that point, all I had really known or heard was just work hard. And that's not a bad idea, but work hard at what? Work hard doing what? Work hard for what? And so there was just this idea of success that I had in my head, this picture of what it was to look like, but I wasn't really doing what it took day in and day out to be successful. And as a matter of fact, I was doing a lot of things to the exact opposite. So just really think about that. If you're in pursuit of success, define what success means to you, and then figure out how you are going to achieve it, and then do those things every single day. Number 2, I see so many men that pursue money instead of freedom. And again, this was the story of my life for a long, long period of time. I continued to seek out a monetary achievement, the accumulation of money. And that's not bad, right? I want to make a lot of money. I want to save a lot of money. I want to invest a lot of money. And I'm trying to diversify that in different places. But if you were worth $1 billion shacked up in prison, you would be miserable. But that's actually how many of you guys are living your life right now. You are so focused on making money, on building wealth, that you aren't actually able to enjoy it. I mean, this is the majority of successful people that I know. They are in this constant loop of achievement, of success, and that success is typically financial success. And again, it's not a bad thing, but they are never stopping to enjoy it. They don't get free time. They're not taking vacations. They're not. Shit, man, they're not even taking a day off or a couple hours off to go golf or hang out with their buddies or spend time with their family, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. So, as you know, I've shared before, I went to a 30-hour work week. In big part, that was because I wanted freedom. I wanted freedom of time and schedule. I wanted to dictate my schedule. I did not want anybody to do that for me. I actually sacrificed financial outcomes and making money to do that, because the less that I work, the less money technically that I can earn as a coach, a consultant. If I'm not working, I'm not generating revenue by and large. So again, are you actually free to enjoy the life that you're creating for yourself? You've worked damn hard to this point. Are you enjoying it, or are you just continuing to pursue accumulation of finances in hopes that one day you will? You may never make it to that one day. So now may be the time that you should reconsider, start enjoying freedom. And if you're not free, you're not happy. Number 3, you're probably not happy, you're probably not happy because you are losing sleep at night and you're dealing with anxiety instead of talking about your feelings. You're anxious, you're stressed out, you're frustrated. Look, like there's a lot to deal with, whether you're running a business, working for somebody, you have a family, friendships, whatever. There's a lot going on in your life. I get that. I totally get that. But if those things are overwhelming you to the point where you can't sleep, like if you're not getting 7+ hours of sleep a night, 99.9% of you have a problem. You need to be sleeping consistently. It's good for your performance, for your health, for so many other things. And you can argue with me all day long that you can survive in 4 or 5 hours or something like that, but that's just total garbage. You can argue with me all day long that you've tried everything and you just can't do it. You haven't tried everything. There are ways to get into a good rhythm of sleep. That's not my expertise, but I could definitely share with you some tips offline. Reach out to me if you'd like to hear what I've done to go from 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night that was interrupted all over the place to getting at least 7 hours of sleep a night. And I do that pretty consistently now. And it's a world of difference. Anyway, but one of the other reasons, not just because you have bad habits around sleep, but one of the reasons that you're losing sleep, that you're anxious, that you're stressed, is because you actually are just too afraid to talk about your feelings. You're feeling these things, but you don't want to talk about them. You don't want to be seen as weak. You don't know who to talk to. You're not comfortable talking about those things. Be a man, step up, and be vulnerable. That's what real men do, is they're willing to talk about the things that they're struggling with. Find a guy, find a good group of guys, talk to your spouse. There's a lot of people that you could talk to. Don't harbor that stuff, because harboring that stuff is just going to make you unhealthy. And ultimately it's going to affect your ability to perform, whether that's in business or in the bedroom. Number 4, you would rather be seen as successful instead of actually being happy. This kind of ties back into number 1 to some degree, but this one is you're working hard, probably. You have stuff. You want everybody to see that you have all this stuff, but you're not actually happy with your life. And as a matter of fact, oftentimes guys use success as a way to cover up their unhappiness. You're miserable inside, but if you talk about it, then you're going to think that people see you having a weakness or a kink in your armor or whatever. The reality is if you're not happy, all the success in the world is just stupid. And success in and of itself will not make you happy. There is never going to be a point in your life, if you're not happy now, that all of a sudden you're going to achieve some level of success, and that will just make you happy for the rest of your life. It's just not the way that it works. You need to figure out how to get into the mindset of being happy with right now. Right now. Who cares what other people think? Do the work, get happy, and then watch that improve your performance and your ability to actually be more successful than you ever even thought possible. All right. Number 5 is, this one's great. I use this excuse all the time. So many men are unhappy because you are working to provide for your family instead of being present for your family. I've mentioned this one a few different times in different podcasts and stuff, but there was a long period of time when I was early in my sales career where I was hustling. I was working hard, 12, 14-hour days sometimes. And I was so ridiculous. I mean, I was telling myself and everybody else that I was doing that to the benefit of my family. Like I was working, I was putting in all those hours for my family. I was providing for them. Well, one aspect of provision is presence. And so if you're working to put money in the bank, but you're not present, you're not showing up, actually face-to-face, spending time with your wife and your kids in quality time, you're not providing for your family. You're just the bank, or you're just a loan officer, just giving them money. You need to provide for them. You need to work hard. That's so important. It is so important to work hard to provide well for your family. So they have food on the table, a roof over their head. They can go on vacations, go to school, whatever it is. But if you're not present, it's not worth it, man. I mean, I've heard so many men tell me that that was one of the biggest complaints that their kids and their spouses gave them was they weren't really present. Even when they were home, they were just caught up in their own world. Don't do that, because again, you never know when today may be your last day, and you will regret the time that you did not spend with them. Number 6, you self-medicate because dealing with your problems aren't easy. Dude, I get it. Dealing with hard shit is hard. It's not easy to work through feelings and struggles and challenges, whether that's in business or at home. Like, that is just not easy to do. But no amount of drugs, alcohol, nicotine, porn, or anything else will ever help you to deal with those problems. They may provide some short-term relief or numb you in the moment, but ultimately face them head on. A real man faces their problems and deals with them. That doesn't mean you're going to deal with them on your own. There's going to be other people that you're probably going to need, but quit self-medicating. You want to go out and enjoy a nice bourbon and a cigar with your buddies? Go do that. I enjoy it. I love that. But if that's your way of dealing with your problems, man, you have a serious, serious issue. You have a much bigger problem than you think you do. I hear a lot of guys that say that, after a rough day, they just can't wait to go home and have a cocktail. If you're going home and having a cocktail every single night, or the majority of nights after work, to ease into your night, to mellow out, you have a problem. You may have an alcohol problem, but you definitely have a serious problem that you need to deal with, whether it's alcohol or not. Address them, deal with them, talk about them, find people to do that with. Another reason you're not happy is because you have plenty of time to scroll the internet. You have plenty of time to watch Netflix or whatever else it is the hell that you do, but you don't have time to go to the gym consistently. Get up earlier, go to the gym. Go straight to the gym after work. Come home, change, go to the gym. Whatever it takes. Being physically fit, being active physically, consistently, is one of the most unbelievable ways for you to feel happy and for you to perform at a high level. I'm telling you right now, the fat slob struggles in every area of life. And there's just no other way to say that. Work hard in the gym, be consistent, and watch how that, again, not only changes your mood and your mindset, but that helps you to perform in every other aspect of your life. Number 8, speaking of performance, you don't have sex regularly because you treat your wife like a servant or a slave. I get it. If I wasn't having sex regularly, I wouldn't be happy either. But the key to my sex life, in large part, is because I treat my wife like a human being. I serve her. I care for her. I love her. I invest into her. I compliment her. I pour into her. Not perfectly, but as often as I can, I do these things. Because the more that I love on, invest into, and pour into my wife, the more my wife will love me, the more attracted to me my wife is, and the more often that she wants to have sex. So, you want to be happy? You want to have a good sex life? Give everything to your spouse. Pour into her. I wish I could share a story, a very specific story about a friend, but let me just tell you that this was some advice I gave a friend recently, and after more than 15 years of marriage, he says this is the best their relationship has ever been because he has started treating his wife differently. And that wasn't just their sex life, that was their entire relationship, but that was a big part of it too. Number 9, you're miserable, you're not happy because you don't have any real friends. You don't have any real friends because you aren't willing to be vulnerable with the friends that you have. If you're keeping surface level relationships, those aren't real friends. Those could be good buddies. Those could be great acquaintances, but they're not real friends. Those aren't people that you're going deep with. And if you're not going deep with people, that's not a real friendship. You want to be happy. You want to live a good life. You want to grow. You want to achieve. Be vulnerable with the men that are closest to you. Be vulnerable with your wife too, but be vulnerable with the men that are closest to you. And by the way, this is a side note, but when I think about the times where men get into the greatest trouble in their relationships, one of the things that stands out to me is that you finally become vulnerable with somebody of the opposite sex. It's that coworker, it's that girl, that friend, that's a woman that you've known for a long time, and for some reason you finally start opening up to her because you feel like it's easier to open up to a woman, not your wife, but a woman than it is a man. And so you open up, you get vulnerable, and then you end up getting into a lot of trouble because you end up having feelings for that person because you've opened up into them that way. So on that note, don't be an idiot. Be careful in those opposite sex relationships. I'm not saying you can't have them, but you need to be extremely careful with them. But back to my point, you want real friends, you want real male friends, be vulnerable. And if your guy friends aren't normally like that, be the man that leads. Step up and go first and watch as other guys open up. Not everybody's going to do that. And you don't have to sit around in a circle and cry together every day. But if you're not willing to open up, you don't have real friends. You don't have real friends. You're never, ever going to really be happy. Number 10, one of the reasons I see that men aren't happy is because they're broke. And one of the reasons I see that they're broke is because they aren't willing to be honest about their finances with other people. Like, we hide those things. Like, you're afraid to talk about what you really make unless you're bragging about how much money that you make. And then you're normally overstating it, just like you are overstating the size. No, I'm not even going there. But you'll overstate your income, but you won't talk about your financial struggles. You won't talk about the debt that you're in, the struggles that you have there. And so you end up putting yourself in a really bad spot. And if you aren't able to take in good, honest wisdom and insight from others as a result of you sharing transparently about where you're at financially, you're never going to get any help there, and you're going to end up being broke. I mean, that was one of the big reasons why I ended up losing everything in 2013, right? My house, all that stuff. It's because I wasn't willing to be open and honest about where I was struggling financially. You got to do that. It's not just about happiness, it's about wisdom, and it's about sustainability of your life. And finally, this is number 11, but this is number 1. And while I said earlier that there's really no order to these, there's plenty of other things that could be exchanged for these or added to, this one for me is a non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. And really this should move to number 1, but I wanted to give you some practical insight before I got to the one that I feel like drives it all home. I believe that the primary reason that men are not happy is because they aren't willing to put God at the center of every single part of their lives. Now, for some of you, you're listening to this and you're like, I don't acknowledge God at all. Like, maybe there's a higher power out there or something, but that's just not my thing. I'm going to tell you right now, if that was your thing, your life would be so much better. It may not be easier. You're still going to have challenges. I have plenty of them. But I'm going to tell you right now, overall, you will be so much happier in life if you were to turn your life over to Jesus Christ. But there's a large group of you that do have faith in Jesus, that do believe in God, maybe even that do consistently go to church. But you aren't allowing God to be at the center of every part of your life. You're not allowing God to be at the center, or you're not putting God at the center of your business, of your friendships, of your marriage, of your finances, of your health, all of those things. If God is not at the center, if he is not the driving force and factor by which you take in wisdom and live out your life in each of those areas, you will never completely be happy. And I would go as far as to say that if you don't have God at the center of every single area of your life, you will never achieve your full potential. Now, don't get me wrong. Putting God at the center of your life, following Christ, does not guarantee that you are going to be successful as you may define like financial success or the accumulation of wealth and stuff. It may happen, but it may not. There's no guarantee. God never guarantees that. I would never, ever support anybody that would say that. But I will say that God created you. He created you for a very specific purpose. If you are to figure that out and to align your life to that, you will achieve your full potential. And so if you want all that this life has for you, faith in Christ becomes the primary thing. It will make you happy, but it will provide so much more. So anyway, 10 plus 1 reasons why I believe men aren't happy, but could be happy. Hope that's helpful for you. If you have any feedback, questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. If you're watching this video right now or watching this podcast right now, you'll see that I'm wearing one of my Freedom Over Everything hats. I believe that freedom is more important than anything in life, whether that's freedom in Christ and my faith, whether that's freedom in my relationships, with my money, everything. Freedom for me is the key to all things. Anyway, so that's a message and a banner that I wave and I love. But you'll see me wearing one of these hats right now, Freedom Over Everything. I also have shirts and some other merchandise. If that's something that you're interested in, you can go to my website, ryanjamesmiller.com/merch. And you can learn more about what's available there. You can pick up some of that merch. We're constantly reordering and refilling new items or existing items, adding new items to that. So I get people that ask me all the time, like, how can I get one of those hats? I love that hat or I love that shirt. So that's the way that you can do that. Beyond that, I have a workshop coming up. It's going to be a 75-minute workshop called Called Men. And really the idea here is to help men answer what I believe are three very important questions that they need to answer. I mean, if you want to be successful, whether it's as a business leader, as a husband, as a father, whatever, if you want to love your life, if you want to be happy, there is definitely some strategy and tactic involved in doing that. But before you get there, I believe there's three crucial questions you have to answer. Number one, who are you called to be? Number two, what are you called to do? And number three, how are you called to live? So I'm going to help provide the framework on how you can answer those three questions, as well as some practical steps forward to begin living that life. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can go to ryanjamesmiller.com/calledmen, CALLEDMEN, all one word there, no dashes or anything like that in between. That workshop is coming up on September 12th, I think is when that is. So this podcast will go live before that. So you can go there, you can check it out. If you catch this podcast after the fact, you can go there, purchase it, and watch the on-demand video, still gain access to the worksheets that will be available. So that's just one way that you can continue to learn and grow with me, that we can learn and grow together. If you're interested in joining our private Facebook community, Men of Freedom, hit me up. You can just reach out to me on one of the social media platforms, DM me on Instagram, on Facebook, LinkedIn if you're there, TikTok even, and I'd be happy to share with you an invite. That is a free community, but it is private, and together we are in there just striving to be the men that God has called us to be, and trying to support each other as we do that. Anyway, so that's it for now. Thank you guys so much for continuing to support the podcast, being out there, listening. You guys are amazing. If you are a woman and you are listening to this podcast consistently, I would love to hear from you. As a matter of fact, I have a gift for you. If you reach out to me and DM me through one of the social platforms, you can also text 714-202-9402. If you want to text to my text community and let me know that you are a woman that is consistently listening to all these males be guests on my podcast, I've got something for you. I just want to say thank you for listening. I think it takes more women helping to shape this narrative, not settling for the garbage men that are out there, or some of the men that are out there, but really helping to shape this narrative to help men be the men that God has called them to be. So whether that's you courting a man to date them, whether that's your husband, whatever, thank you so much for your support, for encouragement, for sharing this podcast with others out there. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Authentic Conversations. If you are ready to live the life you've dreamed of, I'm here to help. Head to ryanjamesmiller.com/podcast to begin your journey. And if this episode impacted you in any way, pay it forward by sharing it with someone you know. I'm Ryan James Miller, and I'll see you next time on Authentic Conversations.